I want to welcome all of you to this really exciting opening of our winter season with Andrea Bowers and Noel Anderson. And I'm so proud to say that right now Contemporary Art Center is really doing what it's supposed to be doing. It provides a platform for all of us to come together, to look at really interesting, poignant art, and to open up dialogues with everybody about who we are and what's at stake in our societies, in our communities, and in our culture. And this is what we are here for all of you in the audience, for everybody who lives in the Cincinnati area. We want to be this really amazing platform to have open conversations, to really, truly, authentically consider another person's point of view and hopefully learn from each other, be open to each other's concerns and needs, and build better societies because of that. So before we get to the talks this evening, I want to share some amazing numbers, because I think that most of you in the audience know that by now we've been free for everybody all the time for about a year, right? So there were 50 incredible individuals between 25 and 45 who made that happen. And so I'm going to give you a few attendance numbers that are, in my mind, really groundbreaking. So in 2015, we were sort of like 1 year after the lobby renovation. And from the year before we renovated the lobby, or let's just look at that number. Before we renovated the lobby, our attendance was at about, now I can't see it here. It was about like 53,000 visitors a year, which is still pretty exciting. We were absolutely on par with other centers of contemporary art in the nation. Just to give you a few comparable numbers, MoCA in Cleveland is at 41,000, MCA Denver, Museum of Contemporary Art in Denver at 55,000, and Contemporary Art Museum in St. Louis is at 37. So it was like 453, we were pretty much right there with everybody else. So after 1 year after the lobby renovation, we were at 84,000, which is really exciting. But after 1 year of free admission, and we are now looking from February 14th to today, February 10th, we are at 148,182 people. So these numbers are staggering and unbelievable. And I'm so glad to know that so many people are interested in who we are and what we do, and that there's so many people who are interested in having and really ongoing dialogue with contemporary art, and a dialogue that is at times a little more challenging. So I want to thank the sponsors for the exhibitions tonight: Andrea Bowers, Women Workers of the World Unite, and Noel Anderson. Now I'm getting a little light. Thank you. Noel Anderson, BLAK History Moment. Sorry, BLAK Orange Moment. I should know that. Well, I create my own reality at times. Sorry about that. So I want to thank 1919 Investment Council and Ron Bates, specifically our board president, for his support, Sarah and Michelle Vansvedel, and our Arts Rave corporate partners, PNC Bank and Macy's. Thank you for making these two incredible exhibitions happen. I also want to thank the gallerists of these two artists, Suzanne Filmetter, a fellow German gallery who's based, or the owner is German, but a gallery based in Los Angeles, and Andrew Krebs Gallery in New York, and then Jack Tilton Gallery in New York. So thank you for your support. And of course, I want to really share my gratitude with Andrea and Noel, because it's been a pleasure to work with them. And the work that they have brought to Contemporary Art Center, I think this work will be insightful and elucidating for all of us for the many months to come. So there are many more people here in the door who want to be in the space with us. So maybe you can come in the back or sit here on the front. There are some seats available in between, so just come on in and get comfortable. Don't be shy about sitting on the floor. There's lots of space here. So come on in and join us. So I want to hand over to Stephen Maticio, our curator, who put these two shows together, and he will introduce the artists. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's so encouraging and motivating to see a full house, and I want to assure you that you're here on a very good night because these two artists are truly inspiring to hear them speak. You'll see their work, but to hear them speak, they are impassioned as they are articulate, and we are honored and privileged to be hosting them here tonight. So just to give you a little note about the format, since we have two artists showing tonight, they're each going to give an individual presentation. So Andrea Bowers will speak for half an hour. Noel Anderson will then follow and speak for half an hour. We'll give you a little bit of time to refresh your drink, go to the bathroom, and if you'd like to come back, we're going to have both artists here for a little mini dialogue. So then they'll be taking Q&A. I'll be moderating, but we'll run about another 20 or 30 minutes. And then after that, we've got two performances up in the lobby. So we have Yemi Oyediran Trio, starting at roughly 8:30. And then after him, Jennifer Simone will perform. And they each perform for about 30 to 45 minutes. So I very much encourage you to go up, check out those performances, and obviously check out the exhibitions. I'm going to speak just briefly so I can give more time to the artists, but I will introduce Andrea right now, and then afterwards I'll introduce Noel. So Andrea, I'm happy to say, we always, obviously at the CAC, we are showcasing the best of international art. But when we have artists that are from this region and succeeding internationally, it's really a double benefit for us. And so I've been following Andrea's career for some time. To then learn that she's from Wilmington, Ohio was an added bonus. And to have so many, really from... Sorry for all the Wilmington people here that were. But it's fantastic to have so much of Andrea's family here tonight. Her father still lives just outside of Cedar Point. This is what I've been told. That's the best way to identify the place. High school friends. Andrea's got a whole community with her tonight coming from central and northern Ohio. She has done tremendously well. She did her BFA at Bowling Green University and then did her master's at the California Institute and has really become an icon in terms of merging art and activism, that they are not parallel paths, but they are tremendously intertwined. She has work in all major collections, the Hammer Museum, the Whitney, MoMA, any major institution that you can name, but this is her first major solo exhibition in Ohio. And so I'm going to hand it over to Andrea. Please welcome Andrea Bowers.
Okay, I'm going to set my timer because I can talk forever. I'm going to shut myself down. Okay. I want to thank the museum and thank Stephen and thank Rafaela. Where did you go? I don't know. Anyway, it's really, really nice. I want to thank Stephen and Rafaela. It's really, really nice to have this opportunity to show and to show in Ohio. It's my first time. This is like a family reunion for both Noel and I. We've got lots of family and friends here. It's really an honor to show with Noel and get to know him. I feel like we've developed we're long-term friendship now. We're going to be friends for a really long time. And it's such an honor to have my work next to his work. It's so good. Okay, I'm going to whip through a series of shows. I am what I would consider an activist artist. I do a lot of activism and I do a lot of art, and I use my art to support activist movements. There will be nothing neutral that you're going to see. I am very opinionated. Hang in there, Uncle Dale. Okay. I don't even know how to use this computer. Okay. So this is a night of radical hospitality. So this was a show I did. So this is Elvira Arellano. In 2007, the wonderful George Bush deported her because she was cleaning airports in Chicago and sending money back to her family. Her parents had lost the ability to make money on their farm because of NAFTA. And she was a single mom with an American citizen son named Salito. and he was 7 years old, and she was deported. She was making, I think, $6 an hour cleaning bathrooms. So it's very similar to what's going on now with the mom who was just deported. So there was a church in Chicago that took her into sanctuary. There's a long history of sanctuary movements. And she lived in this church for a year and never left. And I went and visited her and made a silent film of her. And Salito, there was so much. I was traveling a lot across the border. I had an apartment in Tijuana. I have really good friends, really good artist friends in TJ, and I spend a lot of time there. And everybody had opinions on both sides of the border about what Elvira was doing. Everybody was judging her. And I decided to make a silent film that just moved in on her, and, her eye, it moved in on her eyes. And so instead of thinking about judging what she was saying, you started to realize your own judgments. So your projections onto what she was doing. This was a drawing I made of her. That's the detail. So I do a lot of photorealist drawings. I take pictures of activist protesters. I think it's really important. Early on, I started thinking, do I really want to see another abstract painting in a museum? Or would I rather see someone like Elvira Arellano? So I started taking photos and making drawings of people that I really wanted to honor with my labor. And I wanted to see it become part of a history of a museum collection, because museum collections are part of the way we record our histories. So I see that as one of my jobs. This is a piece that I did. It was a bigger show at the Suzanne Villemetter Gallery called Political Landscapes. And artists have been responsible for recording landscapes for all of history, and generally our job has been to record the land of the conquerors, and I wanted to think about alternative ways of looking and making landscapes as an artist. So this is a drawing of a fence, and I was thinking about it as the border, and these are names of people who died crossing the border to come into this country just to get jobs. So living in California, so these are 10 feet tall. I felt like this piece should remain as one, but I didn't have enough of a career at the time, so I sold them individually. I didn't make any money off of it. I gave all the money back to the organization that collected the names, Border Angels, or at least my portion, because sales are complicated. Other people get part of this money too. You don't get it all. So I sold them off individually because I felt like that was the only place my career was at the time. And I think, I don't know, maybe Ariel can remember, I think we raised like $20,000 or something for Border Angels that year. They provide food and water at the border and blankets. So when people cross, because people were dying crossing. Along with that, I had a video that I made of a young man named Tim DeChristopher. He's kind of like one of my environmentalist heroes. See, George Bush made me who I am today. So I thought I hated George Bush. Now look where we're at. Oh, man, I'm missing him. So Tim was an economics student at the University of Utah. And he found out that, all those beautiful red rock stone areas they have, those government lands. I'm sure we're about to go through this. He decided he would sell a lot of them off his last month as a president for gas and oil leases. He thought we should drill that beautiful land that we all own. That's our land. So Tim was like, I've got to do something. So he's like, I know holding a sign isn't going to be enough. So he showed up at the auction. And because he was like a handsome young white dude, they said, so are you here to bid? And he thought, well, yes, I am. And he signed this piece of paper saying that if he bid without the money, it would be a felony. So he went in, he thought about it. He said, am I willing to take that risk? Am I willing to go to jail to save this land? And he thought about it for 45 minutes and he said, yes, I am. So he went in, he started bidding on the land. And at first he was just raising the prices because not only were we selling off this beautiful land, but it was selling for nothing. They had all worked out deals to sell these lots. So he just started raising the prices. And then he got ambitious and he started buying them. So before he knew it, he had spent something like $2.5 million and bought thousands of acres of land. Now, he managed to he got arrested during the auction. They canceled the auction, and it takes a month to set up a new one. Bush was out of office. Obama came in. The land was protected. He saved the land. Yeah. But Obama still prosecuted him, and he went to jail for 2 years. Love Obama, but wish he hadn't have done that. But anyway, so this is a video of Tim. Now, what I did was I was the only single person who went and visited every piece of land that Tim purchased. And so while Tim's talking, it's like the video is a big old landscape, and then all of a sudden you see this little figure walking through it, and then I get up to the front of it and I write something, and it's the lot number that he purchased, and I turn it around. So I felt like I should really embody the land as a woman, because there's all this also really macho male land earth art, and I wanted in Utah that's been done in Utah, so I wanted to kind of make fun of them and be empowered woman doing this. So anyway, Tim's doing great. He's still doing a lot of environmentalist work. The New Woman's Survival Guide, it's supposed to say. That's not the title at all, but whatever. It's a New Woman's Survival Guide. So I found this I'm always trying to figure out what feminism is and what it was like. I'm kind of obsessed with feminists of the 60s and 70s. I kind of, the famous feminist artists, I kind of stalk them until they talk to me. Or do shows with me, or do talks with me, because I think they're so amazing. So I was looking at, I do a lot of archival work where I collect archival materials. One of my jobs is also, I think, to look at things that have been under-recorded or unrecorded in our history and try to make them visible as an artist. So this was a complete little handmade thick zine of women's culture in the late 60s and early 70s. And so I just scanned every page, made photos of it, and then between each page, so I made a book of wall work. So that's the book over there, but between each page I put contemporary political posters or placards or slogans to sort of look at what the women's movement is now versus what the women's movement is then, and to see what was being repeated and what was being talked about in a new way, what were new issues. So it's just like a tiny little book that becomes a huge wall installation. But also I loved it's not a tiny book. You can't even open it. It's so big when it's an actual book. So I love that it had this power and weight to it. I make a lot of handmade books. Those are drawings. I copied some of the posters. So I'm not sure. I think these are letters. So I try to fundraise if I can sell any of my work. These are letters that people wrote to Planned Parenthood in the offices that explain why they're grateful for Planned Parenthood. And I've just hand copied those letters. And then when a work sells, I donate part of the sales to Planned Parenthood. And then these drawings are in the show. They're just awesome feminists that begin to represent, I think, a kind of intersectional feminism. Hitting this, help the work along. So I have a lot of these big cardboards. So I was really inspired by the Occupy movement. I kept going and visiting a lot of different Occupy sites, and I was so blown away with how beautiful the cardboard signs were, and I was super jealous. I had wished I had made them, or I could just steal them and show them. So as someone who draws, I don't know. I lost track of time. It didn't work. Can you keep track of time for me? Tell me. Cut me off. Okay. I was like racking my head with how I could do something with cardboard. And this guy, Gregory Shillette, was talking about this new movement of art that I've been very involved in called socially engaged practice. It's kind of like a combination of collaborative art practices, performance art, and community organizing and activism. So it's, you know, like the raw materials are kind of like conversation, you know. So anyway, he was sort of talking about how amazing this movement is, but it's not considering the visual qualities of their events or their I don't know, it's not really a physical manifestation of work, but if you have a dinner, you know, there's an aesthetic to the dinner, and these artists were not considering the aesthetics of the event. And he said, like, look at Occupy. He said Occupy was so powerful, but because beneath the digital there was cardboard. And somehow that really, you know, inspired me to make these large cardboard works, and I've made a lot of them. Like, this is like, I think about 11 feet tall, and I've been collecting. So I'm really tired, obviously, of the history of art and advertising and the objectification of the female form. You know, I'm really tired of the way women are treated as objects and not as thinking, breathing, brilliant people and equals. And so I've been searching and building an archive of powerful women in political posters throughout the late 1800s until now, that inspire me and look the way I want to be represented versus the way most women are represented by patriarchy. And so from this collection, and a large amount of those posters or those images, they're like political placards, political posters. They're downstairs on a table, and you can just pick them up and look through them. So this was one of them. This goes back to the IWW, which was like an international union. And they were filled with when anarchism and communism was seen as a possibility and accepted by people. And it was one of the first unions. And so this was one of their images. Let's look. This was another one for May Day. I made a big table. This is Suzanne Vilmuter's gallery, and I'm always confounded by how long the space is. So I wanted to make something that dealt with the architecture. So myself and two young artists who are also activists went to all the labor organizations we could find in the city of Los Angeles, and we collected their flyers. And then we I Xeroxed all of them so that people could pick them up and take them. So it was really cool because it was literally the act of tabling, and you could see everything that was going on in the labor movement. These are some drawings from May Day, and there was a huge kind of crashing of. There was, in downtown LA, there was I forget what year, but there was a immigrant justice protest, and perpendicular to that was a Occupy protest, and they met in the middle, and it was chaos and amazing. And these images come from that. This is colored pencil. And then this is so awesome because this is an LGBT group. This is like this was LGBTQ organization, and she's got Legalize My Man. I have no idea. Her gender is so crazy. I'm so excited about this image. Like, she rocks. It's awesome. This is when I first met the Trans Latina Coalition. I've been doing a lot of work with trans women activists. And so this was a May Day march, so they're dealing with workers' rights, immigrant justice, and trans liberation. To show you some of the details. I took one flyer from every organization and made a large book out of it. It's called Labor is Entitled to All That It Creates. So it's like a review of everything that was going on. It's like, for me, it was before we were thinking a lot about labor organizations, or maybe we still don't, but I wanted to show that there were so many labor organizations just in the city of Los Angeles, and that it's like so important. And so I put it all in one book, and actually the Getty owns it, so it's so great that it's in that history. And then I made a whole bunch of DreamAct graphics, which is like what DACA is right now, and I wanted them to be free downloadables that anyone could use and make political posters of. I made it for LACMA. They rejected it for years and years. Finally, I just uploaded them to a site. But these are drawings I made from those graphics to support the Dreamers and the DreamAct and DACA, or at least the young people who have been going through these issues, who were brought to this country by their parents. They do not have the proper paperwork, but they have lived their whole lives in this country. I believe they should become American citizens. So then I decided to make some more political cardboards. Is it time for me to end? Okay. I decided to make some more political cardboards and for Suzanne Vielmetter Gallery. Ariel's here. Poor Ariel. And I found out that there was this outside of the Frieze Art Fair for their booth. I was like, I can't show those works. Like, I can't show those works. I called up, like, Suzanne, were you there then? I was like, you got to take the works down. And Suzanne was like, it's our whole show. I'm like, you have to take them down. So I immediately called the Teamsters who was protesting because the Frieze was not using union labor. And I called the Arts and Labor of the Occupy movement. For the Teamsters called me back, this amazing woman, Bernadette Kelly, who was running this campaign. And I was like, panicked. She's like, Andrea, it's so awesome to talk to you. We've been protesting outside that fair for 2 years. And finally, we have a way on the inside. I was like, awesome. You know, she's like, and of course we don't want you to take your work out because we support workers. We want them to make, we want them to make money, and you're a worker. You're an art worker. So I had these drawings in it. That one's like 13 feet tall or something. It's really big. So that's the Teamsters. They got inside. So what I did was I put a little letter next to all of it. I'm not going to read it, but just explaining my position. And then we took the graphics I was using and turned them back into political posters and stickers. And 24 hours before the Frieze Art Fair opened, the head of the Frieze Art Fair called me, and he's like, what's going on? How do we work this out? Next thing I know, I've got Bernadette from the Teamsters on the other line. I'm like, I am totally unprepared to be negotiating a contract between the Teamsters and the Frieze Art Fair. It didn't work. I didn't come up with an agreement. I felt like a failure, but I got a lot of press, and my job became speaking to the press. You know, I've really learned a lot about being a spokesperson. I kind of did my job, and a year later, Bernadette took over, the Teamsters took over, Arts and Labor took over. They began negotiating with the Frieze Art Fair, and a year later, the Frieze Art Fair was unionized. So these were all works in the show. Okay, so I also got arrested for tree sitting. I've been following tree sitters around for a while. I know, it seems like it's like, it's one of those stupid things. But it's really amazing. So there was up by where I went to school at Cal Arts, there was a 400-year-old oak tree that the city decided to cut down because there was a yet unapproved development going in. And they wanted to widen the road, and the tree was in the way. So this crazy tree sitter got in this tree. He is now one of my best friends, John Quigley. And we just went to Standing Rock together. But I just heard about it, and I started stopping. At the time, my mom had just been diagnosed with cancer. And something about the idea, my mom had brain cancer. And something about never imagining, like, my mom dying. And I equated that to that 400-year-old tree being killed. Like, there was just something about it, and I just kept stopping. But all of a sudden, I didn't know what I was making. I wasn't really making political artwork at that time, and it was on the way to her house. And anyway, I'm like videotaping, and all of a sudden, someone hands me a walkie-talkie. I thought I was being all quiet, and it was the tree sitter. He's like, you're here all the time. What are you doing? And like, I sort of told him I'm an artist. I'm kind of documented this. I ended up and next thing I know, I was in the tree interviewing him. And then the next thing I know is he's like living at my house because he's broke because he gives all of his money to climate justice and environmentalism. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, you haven't paid me any rent, so why don't you make a tree sitting video with me and teach me how to tree sit? So then the next thing I know, I'm in a tree and I'm actually really good at it. And I actually like it. I'm like, wow, like this is amazing and not like super hippie. And then the next thing I know, he calls me and he's like, we're going in. I'm like, oh my God, you know? So like, I was like, oh my God, I have to do this because I've been making work about it. So I have to do this. So, you know, my whole thing is like, I need a solar charger for my phone. I need really good food. I need like, you know, so I'm like shopping because like I need a good sleeping bag, you know, and I had like 2 hours to do it. But and what happened, I never expected to happen. All the trees got cut down around us. It was an untouched forest of 275 oak and sycamores. They were huge, and they didn't cut them down with a saw. They took a bulldozer and they slammed them into them until they broke like toothpicks, and then they stuck them in wood chippers. They were oak. Like, why don't you save that wood and make something out of it? My God, beautiful old 200- and 300-year-old oak trees. Like, it was amazing. And I got, you know, disturbing the peace, by the way, you know, like whatever. So they brought those so they cut, I was scared to death because all the canopies were attached. And so like, we were like shaking in these trees because they were, anyway, so it got to, you know, whatever, it got to be really late at night and they sent up those like super, you know, those survival rescue guys and like, you know, all their gear, and they like cut us out and took us to jail. And I spent 2 days in jail, which was horrible. But anyway, so this show was about me going to jail. And like, so that's part of, so I decided to remonumentalize the trees. So I went out, that's the trees. Those are little pieces of the cut up trees, remonumentalized. And then you don't just climb a tree, you actually make tree sitting platforms. Like, because you can't just sit in a tree for like 4 months, you know, like people do it for months and years. So they build these platforms. So there were 4 of us who got arrested, and one of the guys had spent like 3 of the last 6 years in Northern California living in redwoods. And so he would come down because he would need money. So we'd buy recycled wood, and I'd be like, make me pimp your ride tree sitting platforms. And so that's what that is. So that's like 30 feet long. And he does all the weaving because I love politics and crafts and how they go together. But he was like, I was like, okay, so make your dream tree sitting platform. And he was like, I want to make a pirate ship. I was like, I'll never have a career because I can't think like a boy. So I decided to make a radical feminist pirate ship tree sitting platform. So I made it like super, super like girly and stuff. Anyway, I decided I need to get the money back from my lawyers. So this is a drawing of my arrest photo. Okay, last thing I'm going to talk about. This is #SweetJane. This is really hard for me. This is very personal. So a few years ago, there was a young woman. I'm from Ohio. I admit it. I was a cheerleader. We were often called Big Red. There was a school, Steubenville, in Steubenville, Ohio. It's a town of 15,000 or 17,000. Their high school football stadium holds 12,000. It was a young woman. There was a case that became really famous because a young woman, there were parties in August right before school started. She passed out. A group of young men, mainly football players, took her from party to party and treated her like a sex toy. And they raped her. And they not only did that, but they tweeted it, and they posted videos, and they texted about it. And it became the first case that was tried based on social media. So I heard about it, and in a lot of ways, I was like, in a lot of ways, I grew up, in rape culture where it was permissible. If you went on a date, you might have to have sex or be forced into sex, and that was seen as okay. That wasn't seen as rape. you know? And I'm like, look, 30 years later, same thing's happening here. So I flew to my poor dad and brother. You know, my dad drove me in the worst weather ever, from like Huron to Steubenville. You know, it was so scary. And I would go to every protest. And then I went to the trial, and I managed to get into the trial because, like, I speak Ohio, and I got the sheriff to let me in. But I happened to get in the day that they wrote down all of the text messages that the boys used, and it became this perfect narrative of this rape. And I thought, you know, with the 24-hour news cycle, this story is going to disappear, and as horrible as it is, we need to remember it, and we need to read it and reread it and read it so it never happens. So what I did, and I was really afraid to do that, I hand drew all the texts. And so this thing is quite large, and it's just based on a kind of, I was thinking about high school students, markers. I use kind of like archival markers. I was thinking about digital space, so I was thinking about landscape, but digital landscapes. And so I made a drawing of these horrific texts. So, and then I kind of hated these white masks. I was like, why are women, I hate these white masks of anonymous. I don't think people should be wearing white masks of white men, and I couldn't get around that with this project. And then when I went there, I realized it was protection, because a lot of those women that were protesting, that football team meant so much that there were so many people that were so angry that this was an issue because they just care about that football. That those white masks, they were wearing huge snowmobile outfits because it was so cold, and they were wearing those white masks to protect their identities. So issues of anonymity became really important to me and made me think in really much more complicated ways than I had. So this is a drawing of 3 of the women. And then I made a video of all the social media. I just downloaded it, and I edited it together in a kind of like very opinionated narrative. And I showed this at a consortium of 5 colleges, and the students, because it was their generation, it was just stuff I took online that I downloaded, and they asked to have a warning sign, which I thought was so weird. It was so awful to them, so frightening that they needed a warning sign. But it's so weird because it's their generation, and it's you know, it was free to everybody. Anyway, I'm done, right? Okay.
Okay, thank you again, Andrea. I'm sure you have a lot of questions for Andrea, but if you'll just hold them, and then we'll assemble both artists back together. I want to make a quick plug quickly. Right now, Wave Pool Art Center and DAP Galleries are co-hosting an exhibition called The Personal is Political, curated by Maria Seda Reeder. Andrea Bowers' work is featured in that show, and she did a panel discussion today. The DAP show opens next Thursday, February 16th from 5 till 7, so I please encourage you to go see that. And also Noel Anderson, his work will be featured at the Miller Gallery, opening February 23rd. A number of prints that are kind of connected with this exhibition, so please check that out as well. But I'm going to give a brief introduction to Noel and then let him speak. So Noel, some of you may know, he was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and then taught at the University of Cincinnati between 2011 and 2015, was a highly influential professor there. He did his BFA at Ohio Wesleyan University and did 2 masters, one at Indiana University and one at Yale University. And Noel also had a teaching appointment at Vanderbilt University and did some teaching in Paris as well on a residency. Was a highly influential and very powerful art maker here. He is now at New York University, where he's teaching in the print media department. But we're so pleased to be hosting his first major solo exhibition in Ohio, which consists of a lot of new work as well as sort of interwoven with existing work. And so I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Noel Anderson. Do you want the sound?
Yeah, do we have this?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have it? Boom, boom.
You want the Soul Man?
Yeah, let's start there.
Okay.
And then I can turn that off. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'll turn it off for you.
Stay right here. Okay. How long are you gonna be? Count to 30. Yo, Benny. You wanna come up here? You can sit on the floor, yeah? Come on, Benny, baby, come on. Thank you so much.
You want the other sound clip?
Cops put a hurting on your ass, man. You know, they really degrade you. White folks don't believe that shit. Don't believe cops degrade. Oh, come on, those beatings, those people are resisting arrest. I'm tired of this harassment of police officers. Because the police live in your neighborhood, see? And you be knowing them as Officer Timpson. Hello, Officer Timpson, going bowling tonight? Yes, nice Pinto you have. Niggas don't know them like that. See, white folks get a ticket, they pull over. Hey, officer, yes, glad to be of help. Nigga got to be talking about, I am reaching into my pocket for my license. Because I don't want to be no motherfucking accident. Police degrade, I don't know, you know, it's often you wonder why a nigga don't go completely mad. You know, you do, you get your shit together, you work all week, right? And then you get dressed, you make, maybe say can't make $125, we get $80 if he lucky. Right, and he go out, get clean, be driving with his old lady, going out to a club, and police pull over. Get out of the car, that was a robbery, a nigga look just like you. All right, put your hands up, take your pants down, spread your cheeks. Now, what nigga feel like having fun after that?
Thank you.
Oh, let's just go home, baby.
Hold on.
You go home, beat your kids and shit.
That's good. Thank
You
you.
gonna take...
Take it out on somebody. So don't mind me. I have a tendency to move a lot when I talk. Those who remember me from UC, University of Cincinnati, when I gave my lectures, I move around a lot, yeah? We gonna go to church tonight, dig? No, this is call and response. You dig me. This is call and response. You dig me. Yes. Look, 'cause sometimes it's like I'm Stevie Wonder, man. I can't see. I can only hear. So you gotta speak up, dig? Very good. There was a time. I'll tell you a story. May I tell you a story? Yes. Very good. I don't use the mic so much. I'm pretty loud. I'm black. There was this moment that my lovely sister, Miami, beautiful woman, she and her husband, Mark, French Italian. The man loves cigarettes and whiskey. Cigarettes and whiskey, it's a French thing. I learned. And coffee, very strong coffee. They got tickets for myself, my mother, who is up front. I asked you to take a bow, but you take over the show. They got us tickets to see Denzel Washington, and what's her name? Viola? Oh, yeah. Before it became a movie, it was August Wilson's Fences was on Broadway. It was like off Broadway, you know, because black folks get marginalized in the shadows. You can't see us in the shadows. Why I like this light? So you better now. And you remember this, Mother? I know you do. And we went in, and we had been waiting in this long line. That's the context, man. Black folks don't want to wait in the line unless something is free. Look, it was free for us. They got us the tickets. We didn't pay for nothing. So we get inside. We're about to go through. And my sister and her husband, well, you know, they pay for the tickets. They go first. They go through. And I'm standing there with my mother. And she's like, I'm trying to get through. No, and I said, but Mother. I look over behind her. Oh, I know, Mother. I was like, I tell the story all the time I give lectures, it's okay. I said, Mother, what are you doing? She said, I'm trying to get in. I said, but it's Stevie Wonder. And Stevie Wonder was standing here, you see, with his bodyguard, you see. Well, he didn't see, he just heard. And I said, but it's Stevie Wonder. She said, well, he blind, he ain't deaf. At which point, now I swear to you, at which point, Stevie Wonder did something like this. He heard you, mother. You know, he heard you, didn't he? He heard you. He heard you, didn't he? I remember that. There might be anecdotal things that occur. Could you time me? Because I was going to do the timing. I want to thank Stephen and the beautiful people here at the CAC for allowing me to, put some work on the wall. It may not be very good. You all are the judges of that. And you gave me an opportunity, Stephen, to present these really charged ideas. It's like kismet or something. This was the time it had to happen. I mean, we're in dire times, and really great dire times, but they're beautiful dire times. Because now we're being called to task, like Avatel Rennell would say. The phone has rang. You better pick that phone up and ask who it is. And we better go to work. I'm for real. I'm going to get up on the pulpit now. It's time to go to work. My mother did her job. You know, she dealt with Nixon. And as an older black woman said to me, thank you, Governor. As an older black woman said to me at a NYU diversity dinner, I said, well, ma'am, she's a emeritus professor in the law department. And if I say foul language, I'm sorry. I said, well, Miss Patricia, we have Trump. She said, Trump ain't nothing. I said, why? She said, because I beat Nixon. We beat Nixon. We'll beat this fool. I said, oh. At which point I thought to myself, this is my time. This is our time. It's a call to action, you understand? We're going to have a call to action. So I thought I wouldn't give like a kind of precursor or a conversation about what's happening upstairs. I would just talk about how I got here very briefly, and then there's like barbecue coming or something, you know. I thank Stephen, but I also want to thank my dear friend, or my family specifically, my mother and my aunt for putting up with me for all these years. You know, I was not a nice boy all the time. And I'd like to thank my brothers for really supporting me. My brother John, my brother Joseph, and my sister Niam, because without, you all don't know, I don't say this a lot, without you all, I wouldn't be here. I really wouldn't. You guys helped me more than you even realize. There are things I remember from when I was a boy that just keep haunting me. You know, I don't say, oh God. My brother would say, oh gosh, Noel, oh gosh. I say, oh gosh, darn. Which I really love. And I always want to thank my father. Whenever I give lectures, I thank my father, who is no longer here physically, you know, visibly, but I feel the man. The man is in this room. Get off the stage, old man. It's not your time. You had your time. You beat that. So I have 2 master's degrees, 2 MFAs. You say, this brother went back for 2 MFAs? That's like 3 tours of duty. Oh, sorry. Let's go back. We'll reverse that. One more thing I want to say. I want to thank my dear friend and my other brother, Dr. Chris Holland. Where are you? Are you in the room? There we go. He's a professor at UC, and his lovely family, the Holland crew. Without Chris, I wouldn't be here, because he pushes me to another stratosphere of critical thinking. Without him, I wouldn't know who Derrida is. I wouldn't even think about Derrida. And without Derrida, I wouldn't even be able to get to Fred Moten, who we may or may not talk to tonight, who's another critical black radical thinker from California, the brother of the genius. And Andrea, you pushed me, child. I remember when I was in school at Indiana University years ago, and I'm sorry. 2 years ago, I was at Indiana University, and I saw this book, and your work was in this book. Brilliant drawings. And when he said you were going to show, I was like, yes, I got to step my game up. And I also want to thank, I don't know if he's here, because I don't know if he can make it, my dealer and really dear friend, Jack Tilton, because without Jack, this show wouldn't have happened, because I was making some work that was kind of weak and tepid, and I called Jack. Actually, I sent Jack some images of the work, and he called me. I said, oh, man, he really loves the work, because Jack don't call you back unless he really loves the work. And Jack called me. I said, Jack, baby, how you doing? And he said, what the hell is this? And I said, this is my new work. It's my good work. He said, I don't want to see this anymore. He said, what happened to that stuff you were doing back in grad school when you came out of grad school and the stuff was hot and it was on fire and you were charged and you were pushing buttons? I said, what? He said, man, you were pushing buttons. I said, well, I guess I pushed more buttons than a pizza delivery boy or something. So I did that. And because of that, I'm here today. For all of that, I really appreciate it. So let's go here. There's a weird moment in people's lives. I'll back from me. I'll have to ask the question. So I went to IU. That was 3 years. 3 years of interesting experience. If you're a person of color, specifically a male of color in the Midwest, and you go to those institutions for an upper level degree, you're usually the only one. And you end up having to do this thing in critiques. And Devin, it's going to happen to you, baby. My man Devin's here. He's going to go to grad school. It's going to happen to him. Where you end up having to explain your work to people that you think should know what it's about. You say to yourself, why do I have to tell you what this is about? And why is it always about being black? So I did that for 3 years. I hated it. And I remember, I'm going to go to a sad place and I'm going to win you back. We're going to go to a sad place and I'm going to win you back. That's what I do. How many of you all have experienced that? This is a real, raise your hand. Hi. Yes. Very good. That's my aunt Pat right here. So after I graduated from IU, my father was dying. And it was the most beautiful experience of my life. It was gorgeous. I would drive from Indiana down to Louisville, Kentucky, where I'm from, and he would be in bed at the hospital. And then every time he came back, he had lost something. He couldn't talk anymore. So we made this sheet. Oh man, we made this sheet. And it was like the 5 things he always wanted. It was food, bathroom, TV, washcloth, shut the fuck up. And he pointed to shut the fuck up a lot. It was like, but there was this moment, because my father and I were very close. And I remember when he was not sick, really that sick, and he said, look, Noel, there's going to be a moment in this life when I'm not going to want to be here anymore. I'm going to give you the signal. I'm going to want you to let me go. And make sure your mother's okay, and we're going to let it go. So I would go into the hospital, and I would wipe his face with a washcloth. And when they can't do it anymore, that's a beautiful thing. Because I realized it was beautiful because I was allowed to help someone out of this time into another space that had helped me so much in this time. You understand me? That's beautiful. Yeah. That's what death is. It's beautiful to say, look, old man, you did a hell of a job. Now it's time to go home. And when I watched him dying, and I remember he was in the hospital, and he just looked at me, and I said, you ready to go? And he said, it's time to go, and that's cool. You need to go home. You done been here 81 years. Hell, go home. At that point, I thought to myself, well, you're not going to be here forever, Noel. And you don't want to be in Indiana forever, Noel. So you got to figure out a plan, Noel. And that plan was simple. I'm going to apply to Yale and see if I can go to grad school again. I did, and I was lucky. And the first thing I did there was, and this is all to give you context, the first thing I did there was I hired, we had to do a first-year show, and I hired a homeless, I was doing performance, and I hired this homeless man. This white man, wearing this Yale sweatshirt, said, yo, let me get some money. I said, bruh, I'm not giving you nothing. And he said, why? I said, because when Uncle Sam comes for the money when it's over, he comes to me. He does not come to you. You understand? I said, the student loan's my debt. I said, but I'll put you to work. He said, why? I said, I'll put you to work. You come meet me at this gallery for the opening. I'm going to give you $20 for 10 minutes worth of work. At which point he came, and I did my first performance at Yale, which was an interrogation of a white man who was homeless about his privilege of being white. And I was a young black man who was privileged at Yale. You know, and it was like reenacting all these really bad 70s movies, you know. It was like, we saw you, and it was like this light, and it was weird. But from that, I was able to start doing performance. And from there, I had a thesis show that was many years ago, and I started to think, well, I'm really tired of being seen a certain way in terms of black masculinity, which is the brute. You know, you're either brute or you're over-sexualized, you're the criminal, right? The People versus O.J. Simpson, a.k.a. the People versus an Innocent Damn Man. We'll tell you that. At which point, I started to do these performances where I started dressing up as this white kid. Now, he was androgynous. Was he a boy? Was he a girl? Who cared? But I thought, well, if I could make this character, I could transcend my race and I could be something totally different. Because the barrier visually is just the skin. But to get through the psychological barrier of race is a whole nother animal. To unthink the condition that we're in, to unthink that this is what you're supposed to act like when you are a woman, to unthink that this is what you're supposed to do when you are a black male, that's hard. Unthinking is hard because you're inundated, no? Does everybody feel that? I mean, do you feel it? I know that's right. So I decided to start doing these images, these photographs of me as this androgynous white boy. You know, and I started watching these, I started looking at these J.C. Penney images, you know those images, right? We in the Midwest do it, right? You dress your child up and say, well, damn it, baby, smile. You're like, I just want to go to the bathroom. And you say, just smile. God, I'm paying $20 for this thing. So I decided to do it. And we came up with this character. And there was a performance that occurred where we had like men dressed as women doing dancing and singing and doo-wop, all trying to use the costume to transcend the boundary of race and gender. But I didn't realize that the object itself was doing that. How do I mean that? How do I mean that? Taylor, how do I mean that? No, you're good. What do you see? No, you're good. Just trust me, child. I'm with you. What do you see? Be stupid like me. Come to the floor. That's the best stuff. Okay. What else do you see? Crying. Ah, there's crying. Do you see an object? A bear. No, not just a bear. Is the object woven? Do you see a woven tapestry? Does anybody see a woven tapestry? Yeah. Yes, come to the floor. That's where the best stuff is smoked. I begin to realize that the object, you did very well, child. If you were in my class, I would give you a B-, which means you passed. The object itself began for me to be a site of transition. How do I mean that? In Western European context, it is women's work. Weaving and craft in Western European context is a woman's job. It is her, not even just, it's a labor. Not her duty. You can say it's her duty, but you don't want it to be your duty because that's another calling. Hello? I don't want to answer that. So I started to realize that the woven tapestry could allow me, as an object, to conceptually talk about transcending race and gender. At which point I was approached by my friend Jack Tilton, who came to my studio. And to be honest, when artists do studio visits, they're all like, yeah, it's great. This guy, I'm going to show you everything. And he came in, and I was listening to Thelonious Monk, jazz, and he sat down, and he said, well, let's talk about your work. I said, no, I'm working right now, but you can hang out and watch me work. He said, okay. So he watched me work. And we talked about jazz for like 2 hours. Then he left. Then he came to my thesis show and wanted to buy something. And a friend of mine called me, this is the worst thing to do. This is business 101, you don't do this. A friend of mine called me, he's like, yo, Tilton's here right now, he wants to buy something. I said, let him wait. I'm tired. I want McDonald's. I'm hungry and tired, I'm not coming down there. Which I guess worked, because then he said, I want you to be in this show. And this was my first show in New York, which I was lucky enough to get the New York Times write-up, which was a group show, and a lot of the artists in the show I think were really angry with me. But when you make good work, don't be angry. So what you're looking at right here, I don't make good work, I'm sorry. What you're looking at here is a photo compilation of Martin Luther King, JFK, and RFK, woven into a tapestry. It's about, 6 feet by 4 feet. And I love this piece because I give you this piece because there are pieces upstairs you're gonna see, which are on one of the back walls, which are 3 separately framed images of the cop and the person the cop killed that are merged into one figure. So on the left you'll see Michael Brown and the person who killed Michael Brown. On the far right you'll see Eric Gardner. I can't breathe. Well, you have asthma. No, I can't breathe, and don't smoke those cigarettes. Eric Gardner and the man who killed him. And in the middle you have, what is his name? Officer Tensing and Sam DuBose. You better eat it up. This is your come to Jesus moment. I was here when he was killed. I was devastated. I cried. And I've seen some bad things. I live in New York. So then as I worked through these compilations, I did another show at Tilton where I started to do the compilations more. So on the left, you'll have Andy Warhol and Medgar Evers. And on the right, you'll have David Berkowitz, a.k.a. the son of Sam, and John Wayne Gacy. In the early stuff, there's really no logic other than I realized I was grappling with the missing of a father, and I was trying to develop these weird masculine father figures by doing like a Hegelian synthesis of, oh, I know. That's my boy over there. It's very good. Trying to do this kind of synthesis of these two opposites into one form. Again, also dealing with the woven tapestry. And then this one is Oswald, Triangular Fire, man. He didn't do it. Oswald and Kennedy. So then as I progressed, it's going down, it's going up, good. As I progressed, I was just really just trying to find images that I'm into and that quasi dealt with my my origins as a child. Well, oh, let's go there. Let's go there. This is how I teach. This is how I speak. It gets taught and typed. May I tell you a story? Good. So when I was a boy, my father was out working, and she was working too. But she was beautiful enough to be able to get us Little Caesars pizza on Friday. And you know, Little Caesars is pizza in a bag. Pizza in a bag. It was better then because my taste buds were different. Now and she would get that and Crazy Bread. And I was a chunky little bastard. But no, that's not chunky. You're husky. That's what they say. I would go to the store with my brother Joseph and my father, and he would always get the slim stuff, and I would always have to get the husky stuff. And I was like, "Oh, fat." And my father, "You're a wolf. You're a wolf." Anyway, she would get that the Little Caesars. You get 2 pizzas for the price of one. $10, 2 pizzas, and the Crazy Bread. And you only got soda on Fridays, usually from what I remember, because you don't want to get fat or have diabetes. Black people have diabetes. And on those Fridays, we always watch Fat Albert. And when you're a child, right? This is not just like a black thing, it's like a white thing, it's a human. When you're a child, sometimes you're not conscious of that, right? You're like, oh, this is a cartoon, it's amazing, I'm entertained, this pizza is great, everything is amazing. And then you get older, you have this thing happen to you, and maybe if it doesn't happen to you, you're lost. You have this thing happen to you where you gain, what is that word? Insight. Like Paul Newman says in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, man, I got insight, baby. Everybody else wears spectacles. You get insight. You start to look at these images and say, wait a minute. Fat black dude eating cheeseburgers? Wait, and a fat black dude and his friend smoking a pipe? And you say to yourself, and this was developed by a black man who was a doctor? Something's wrong with the logic. Who runs the metastructure? I don't know. At which point I realized that's what the work was about. How can I unthink my own origin so I can realize that the blackness that I may or may not be emerges out of these experiences and other experiences, while still sticking with the format, which I was still working with the format. I think upstairs I'm starting to get the format. Because, you know, like the archive, there's never like a single thing. You just keep working until you get it. And when you think you get it, you really don't get it, so you keep working. That's called life or something, a 4-letter word that I love. So then I did that. Then I did another show at Tilton in which I started to apply or approach the tapestry as not just a tapestry, but what its history was, which I was lucky enough to teach in Paris, which I still do. And while in Paris, I started doing research about the history of tapestries, right? And the history of tapestries is very, very amazing. You have a painting, which is it's called a cartoon. Oh, let's go there. You have a painting, which is a cartoon. And then that painting gets turned into a bigger woven tapestry for a patron who has a ton of money. If there are any patrons in here, see me when you're done. So the painting gets turned into a tapestry, and that's usually for one person. And it lines a wall, it does this thing, it has a function. But then the painter says, but I want to make more money. This is business 101. So what does the painter do? The painter takes a painting, gives it to someone, they make a print. He makes 20 damn prints. He makes 100 damn prints. And then you give that to other people, and that's another level of commerce. Is everybody with me so far? Yeah. I know you would be. You dig. Good. I didn't lay it so deep. So then I started to realize there's an implicit relationship. I'm good. There's an implicit relationship between the tapestry, the painting, and the print. And if the painting relates to drawing, then there has to be a relationship between the tapestry, the painting, the print, and a drawing. Then there's a photograph. And in the history of photography, you know, you have the relationship between the photo and the painting. Photo relates to painting, photo relates to drawing, which I really love. And I thought, this event, which I am thinking of as the tapestry, is the site where all of that can collide. At which point, I started to try to collide painting, print, and photography into one experience. What you're looking at is a woven tapestry that has like polyurethane, acrylic, acrylic, glass slides, CDs, you know, compact discs for those who are too young, Sorry. And these chords, and I made this here in my old studio over on the west side. But the image that you can't even see anymore because I totally obliterated it was one of my idols, David Hammons, doing a body print. So I had this image of David Hammons, who I love. He's a cipher. He's probably here and you don't even know it. I had an image of David Hammons doing one of these body prints, and I sent it to my weaver, because I have a weaver I work with now, and they wove the image, and then I totally obliterated the image, and I got bummed out. I was like, man, you lost the best part of it. You know, but that's a part of the journey. The part of the journey is losing it and trying to find it again. Or don't even worry about finding it, because the experience you get while losing it is what it's really about. In the show, I'm not going to show you the whole show, I'm just showing you these pieces to give context to what's happening upstairs, was another woven tapestry of an image from a comic book. Not a comic book, a coloring book. A coloring book, yes, a coloring book. It's a Fat Albert coloring book. I have a really, this is the confessional time of my talk. I have 5 minutes, yeah. The confessional time of my talk. I have a problem. May I confide in you? Good, don't tell anybody else. I have a tendency to not sleep a lot. Anxiety is a mother. And when I stay up, my fingers find their way to eBay. Oh, you have it too. Welcome to eBay Anonymous. I have a tendency to buy things in bulk. I buy a lot of Ebony magazines in bulk, and then I found this amazing Fat Albert coloring book. I had never seen it before. And I looked at the price, and I was like, well, if I was in my right mind, I would never pay for this. But it's 2 a.m, I sure as hell am not in my right mind. So I paid for it, and then it got there, and I got it, and I opened it, and I thought, this thing is brilliant. And then I started copying the images out of that and started making even more tapestries with it, because I realized that any source that I touch that is an image, I can make it into a tapestry. Is everybody with me so far? And that kind of complexity of what happens when the image goes through another filter, if it comes out as a painting, if it comes out as a drawing, if it comes out as another form, which is a tapestry, what does that add to the image? What does it do to its, what is that, Dr. Holland? Its meaning field. What does it do to its meaning field? It totally changes everything. So in the show, I was still grappling with, pushing the boundaries of gender specification, and that lovely word that everybody uses now, intersectionality. And I did this thing, right? So I was here. I was still teaching here. And I found this woman online who lives in Kentucky, who does these things called, I think they're called like Kirkland photographs. They're aura photographs. And what you're supposed to do is you sit in front of this camera and it photographs you against this black backdrop. And when you get wow, it's like a Polaroid, this thing. And when the thing comes out, you look at it, and all these colors emerge around your body. I think it's malarkey, but I loved it. So I got in my car, and I drove down to Kentucky, like deep in the backwoods, man. It was like, ain't a black person down here. I just tell everybody I play basketball, they'll treat me nice. And I went to her house. It was her house. She had no place of business. It was her house. And I get out of the car, and I go into her house, and she has a dog and a woman on her couch, and I was like, this is very weird. But I'm lost, and I want to experience this. And she said, you're here for the photograph? I said, yeah, I'm here for the photograph. She said, well, sit down, we'll take it, you'll be done. I said, well, can I get dressed real quick? She said, but you are dressed. I said, I got to put my costume on, my alter ego. And I went into the bathroom, her bathroom, and I think there were mouse traps everywhere. It was very weird. Much like the closet yesterday. That was very weird. I came out of the bathroom, and I had a blonde wig on. I was painted white. And she was like, I don't want to know. And she said, I don't want to know. I'll do the photographs. I said, okay. So in the show, she did these really gorgeous photographs, which at that point, I scanned them in the computer, I enlarged them, and then I printed on top of them just to give it a nice gloss. No, it's a silk screen. I'm a printmaker or something. And then I pulled this David Hammons move where you put the thing in a frame and then you cloak it. And then you only allow someone to lift and look at it if they make an appointment. So people would have to call, like text, email the gallery, or call the gallery and say, I want to see this thing. I don't know what it is. I heard it's a bad mother. At which point they would, the woman would put the gloves on, The gallery assistant would put the gloves on, and then she would say, are you ready? And they'd be like, I'm ready. You're ready. And they would lift the thing, no? Sit with that for a second. I need water. I'm moving too fast. I got 5 minutes. You okay? We're at 24. We're at 24. We're gonna come to the home stretch. Right? I thought, okay, if I could be Nicole Brown Simpson, what would my aura be? And then I had 2 photographs of Nicole Brown Simpson. Then I had 2 more photographs just as me. And the aura was totally different. The colors were different. Do I believe in it? No. Do I like the colors? Yeah. That new age stuff don't get a lot of black folks. I don't know. So we're around this way. So as the work continues and progresses, I start to realize that the images that we all use and relate to are not real. They're not real. You know, how does one say? Who would say there's an image of this? What's an example? Hollywood, that's not real. Denzel's not real, no. There's got to be an image that you look at and you say to yourself, well, that's not real. She don't really look like that. But then your husband says, no, she don't look like that. She look like that. And I thought to myself, well, if the image is not real, then I need to put something real in relation to the image. At which point, I started putting taxidermy animals, which I'm doing now, but I only have like 1 or 2 upstairs. There's the thing, but you have to see it for yourself. I start putting taxidermy animals on top of woven textiles, so that which are also morphed. They're morphed, so that I could play with the image because I don't believe it's structurally real. I just don't believe it's real. It's not real. I'm real. You smack me now, I'm like, damn, that hurt. I smack the image. The image's not gonna say anything to you. And I put the taxidermy cat on top of the woven textile, and this one's called Curl. It's from an advertisement from an Ebony magazine from the 80s. You know, black folks love our hair, even when we just buy it. Hi, mother. No, I asked my mother. That's why I love her so much. I said, mother, whose hair is this? I bought it. It's mine. I said, I know that's right. You bought it. It is yours, child. That's right. So as the work progresses, and I think I'm running up on like 2 more images, as the work progresses, I continue to go back to my own personal archive of images. And the father figures, other than just my own father, the father figures that people I looked to when I was growing up. Everybody looks to other paradigms of success, right? But the complexity of those paradigms we don't always consider, right? You look at, I'm not going to go Bill Cosby. I wouldn't do that to you. But you look at someone like Richard Pryor and you say, that brother is successful. But then when you like do the legwork and dig through his personal archive, you're like, that's not a successful act. You know, it's like, how do you define that success? Is it financial? That's nice. That's nice, but he didn't have a successful act in certain portions of his life. Is everybody with me? Dig. So I try to like consistently put implications for myself in the work, which I always ask of my students. I always ask them, what is at stake? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, if nothing's at stake for you in the work, why the hell are you here? You paying all this money to go to, you paying $60,000 to go to NYU a year, and you don't know what's at stake? Because I tell them this, when it's all said and done, and you're not at this university anymore, and you alone in your studio, and I'm not paid to care about you, because it's true, I love you now, but in 4 years, actually 3 years and 59 minutes, I'm not going to be here to ask these questions anymore. And you have to be able to do that for yourself, which you all have to do, right? You all have to realize in this lifetime there is something at stake. Not like you put A1 sauce on it, like something's at stake. And how are we going to take what's at stake and do something with it? So that's where we are now. 2 minutes. So what we're doing now is this. I am a part of a museum institute or a museum group that we're building out of NYU. We're still working on the name. It was like Museum Network. And when you get a bunch of academics, everybody sends out texts, emails all the time. You never get anything done. It's really terrible. You just get New York cabbies to do everything. They get things done so fast, you know. They talk with a honk, 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 honk or something. And what we're trying to do is build networks between institutions. And the one institution that I've already spoken with who is in conversation or in the region is the University of Louisville. Chris Wrights is in that committee. And we're trying to do things like share programming, but we're trying to do something else that I think is more radical. You want to know what it is? We're trying to get the community to come and propose public programming during the run of the show in the space. So you who live in the community, or you know someone who lives in the community who might have a great idea for something, can build agency. What is that agency? You have power, you have words, you have guts. Is everybody with me so far? So what we're gonna try to do now is I'm gonna give you an email. And if you have a proposal for something you think might be kind of cool to see in the institution, that would be great, because we're doing Black Lives Matter. Cincinnati's going to come and do something in the next month or so. I think we're going to do something about safe spaces. I'm trying to get this law professor to come in and give a conversation or have a conversation about stuff. So the email is this, and flood the email. It's my email. It's my NYU. It's, oh, you're going to love this. Yeah, everybody loves this email. It's NWA. No, for real, it's NWA. That's the email they gave me, because it's my initials. It's NWA the number 1 at nyu.edu. If you or you know anybody who wants to participate in radicalizing space, you better get off that ass. You better get off, because if you don't get up, we're going to run right past you. Dig? Is everybody with me so far? And you better send me an email. Flood that space. If you know somebody, be like, yo, this brother's doing this thing. He's from New York, but he's coming down here a lot. He wants to do something. Is everybody with me? I mean, we did something the other week with the high school students, right? Can I tell you one more story? I'll be done. One more story, I'll be done. I have like 10 seconds. Pause. I have more than 10 seconds now. Sorry, I'll be done. I'm so sorry. We had the high school students here, and Chris and Nandita. I love you, Nandita. I'm sorry I didn't mention you. You're beautiful and brilliant. Brought high school students I used to work with, and some I didn't hear, and Tiffany brought them to the institution, and we had them upstairs in the space, and we had this like 50 students and me, and they looked at the work, and then they came and asked me a question, and this young brother asked me a question I thought was damn brilliant. He said, young brothers, they front. Because there's some girls there, he trying to look all cool with his saggy pants, his 2 cell phones, talking about, hey, I got a question for you. You can take the aggression out your voice. I mean, you gotta be mad about it. It's a bit early to be black stereotypes. Like, what's the deal? He said, oh, I'm sorry, I got a question for you. I said, yeah. He said, that big tapestry behind you, how much that cost? And I was like, oh, you're getting a little personal. He said, I just want to know. And I was like, okay, So I told him. And he was like, damn! And I said, why'd you want to know? He said, because I just want to know what your money working with. And I was like, what? He said, I just wanted to know what your money working with. And I said, all right, 16-year-old, I'm good. But that's the kind of thing we're doing. If you know of anybody or you know of something, my aunt does things where she used to cook or show people in certain neighborhoods how to cook healthy. It could be something as simple as that. We can have a dinner here, man. Let's do something. Everybody dig me? All right, that's what's up.